So the question is, who is the protagonist of Kengan Omega? In Ashura, the protagonist can be considered either Kazi Yamashita or Oma, depends how you look at it. I personally consider both of them the protagonists of Kengan Ashura, with there actually being a word to describe this known as a deuteragonist. I think I pronounced that right, but it's with stories that have two protagonists, so there you go. Kengan Ashura, in my opinion, has two protagonists, Oma and Yamashita. Let me know down in the comments what you think about that. But now we have a new issue. In Kengan Omega, we get introduced to a new character. Starts off, which is Koga, our boy Koga, 6 Scoops Koga. And we think he's the protagonist, so like the first bit, we get like a lot of training of him. But then we get some shine of Yamashita that kind of balance it out between Koga and Yamashita, making us think they'll have the same thing as Kengan Ashura, a deuteragonist, so two main protagonists. So that's what it was for, like, you know, the first 50 chapters. And you know, as we know, chapter 50, with the return of Takita Oma back from the dead, everyone thought he died at the end of Kengan Ashura, but no, chapter 50 of Kengan Omega, he has returned and pretty much taken the spot of Koga as the other protagonist of the story. Koga has had some shine since then, but not really so much. All he's done since that chapter 50, we're in chapter like in the 70s now, I believe, is where he pretty much risked his life to, you know, allow Yamashita to escape and end up seeing Oma again and all that, and then got injured. We've seen like a couple chapters, couple little moments between chapters, but not really, especially with the Purgatory tournament going on. We're not really seeing much of Koga at all. But I personally don't think it will end up like this. I got a video coming up in the coming weeks talking about the future of Koga, and I'll get more into detail with that video, but I'll just go over some quick little points here. So after the Purgatory vs Kengan tournament, I think we're gonna have like a whole arc involving like a worm invasion, or the Kengan fighters facing worm and all of that. And then after that, I think that's where we're going to go back to more Koga training and seeing Koga as maybe the true main protagonist. We may have Oma, you know, brought to the side or left to the side for a little bit after all the worm stuff. And the worm stuff may not even happen after the Purgatory tournament. It may be like this: the Purgatory tournament ends, Kengan wins, then we go to, you know, Koga training, him having his first Kengan match and all that. And then we may cut to some worm stuff, and maybe Koga will play a secondary role while Oma's at the forefront during that arc or something along those lines. But the question is, who is the protagonist of Kengan Omega now with the return of Oma? There is a word for this. It's called a tritagonist. There's a word for everything these days, but a tritagonist where there's, you know, 3 main characters, but it kind of tends to order them, this word, from, you know, most important to third most important, with all of them being considered pretty much the main protagonist. So if I had to order these 3 characters of, you know, the most important protagonist to the least important, in Kengan Ashura, most important is Oma, then Yamashita. In Omega, at the start, so before 50 chapters, it was Yamashita, Koga, in my opinion, honestly, or could be argued Koga was the most important. But now, the return of Oma, I rated around Yamashita is probably number 1 right now for some unknown reason, then Oma, then Koga. But as the story progresses, I think Koga will end up taking that number 1 spot and truly be the main protagonist of Kengan Omega, with this idea mainly coming from how we get to see his development. For most stuff regarding Oma and for most stuff regarding Kengan Ashura, we got training and evolution of characters with backstories during the fights, and they already, most characters started off at like a peak of strength, such as the introduction of Oma, winning all these fights, not taking really any L's for during pretty much all of Kengan Ashura almost. But with Koga, he starts off, you know, a bit above average people, then gets, you know, shut down and destroyed, and we get to see his goal, and we get to see him starting at the bottom, a lot lower than many of the other Kengan Ashura fighters, and we get to see him train with other characters, build up, become stronger, get all those scoops in, become an absolute Chad, and develop a lot more than what we have seen Oma develop in Kengan Ashura, with Kengan Ashura really being about Oma. And now that Oma's back, it is kind of about him again, but I think that will change as we get more chapters as the story progresses. And there's also another character that may be considered a protagonist, but I personally don't, and that's Gaia Ryuki, with the introduction of him, with the whole, you know, clone possibility, him being a clone of Oma and everything that we're still waiting to learn about with that. With him also getting quite a bit of shine compared to the other secondary characters in the story, so he'd be somewhere in the middle, not part of the big 3 protagonists, but the step below in my opinion. Let me know your thoughts of that down in the comments, and your thoughts of the whole video, and the question of who is the protagonist of Kang and Omega, with me personally seeing all three of them as the protagonists at this point in the story, but as it progresses, as we get more, I think Koga will end up taking that protagonist spot. But yep, that's it for today's video. That's it guys, peace.